What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
This is UnCleated with Garrett, Gibbs, and Jason Bishop.
In my opinion, that sucked.
We failed to make our coaching points and our points more compelling than their fat little girlfriend.
Oh my God, did he really just say that?
UnCleated. Garrett, Gibbs, Jason Bishop here on the Bishop Media Sports Network. We got a lot to get into. We're going to talk top 25, give our picks for next week's game. We're going to talk the Georgia-Florida game. We're going to give our picks for who deserves if the season ended today.
Ooh, that's going to be an interesting one.
If the season ended today, who should play for the BCS National Championship?
I got my pick.
I hear you. I hear you. We're going to talk about the SEC East implications, what needs to happen for who and what to win and get into the SEC championship game. So we'll discuss that. And also, before we do, I want to mention this. As you know, Garrett, I help out a lot with the Southern Sports Edition, who covers high school football here in Southeast Georgia. There was a game that I had to do in Savannah between a team from Glenn County and a team in Savannah. And as you and I have discussed before, the schools in Savannah don't pay a lot of attention to football. They're more basketball focused, so their football teams typically aren't very good. So I'm doing this game for one of our radio partners, an 11 a.m. Saturday morning game.
I didn't even know they had those, man. I've never been to one.
Yeah, lucky you. I wish I had never been to one. Had to leave from where I live at about 8 o'clock in the morning.
I thought it was illegal to play high school football on a Saturday morning.
You know, the thing is, too, the school that was hosting the game had the opportunity to go to the other school's stadium. The other school offered to buy them out because another Savannah school was playing Friday night in the stadium that they share, Memorial Stadium in Savannah. And instead of accepting that school's offer to go down there to play and be bought out and then split the gate, which they would have made more money, they decided to be petty and say, no, you have to come up here. So it's 42-0 in the fourth quarter. At that point, the team from Glenn County is on top, 42-0, 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. I'm calling the game. That team from Glenn County has now put in their freshman team. The school from Savannah, they're still playing their varsity. They're down.
Trying to get some rips.
Yeah, 42-0. They're getting trounced, and probably a 52-yard touchdown pass. This kid makes the catch on some freshman kid that has never seen the field the whole year. He makes the catch at the 10-yard line. He's down 42-0, and he high steps into the end zone.
Hey, he's trying to get his future Heisman chances up, man. That's all that is.
If he was that good, don't you think he'd had an opportunity to high step in other opportunities in the game?
Well, I wouldn't think it'd be 42-0.
I would agree.
That's just me. That's just I wasn't even at the game.
I called him out on the radio. I did. 42-0, and you're going to high step it in the end zone. Are you kidding me? And then they missed, and they went for two and didn't get the 2-point conversion.
Just to cap it all off.
Yeah. Final score 42-6.
Well, let me ask you. You know anything about hunting, particularly deer hunting?
I know that deer meat's good.
That it is, my friend. That it is. My son has a new passion now, and he likes to deer hunt. And I wasn't raised up around it. None of my family did it. My in-laws happened to do it. The whole family, from ages 3 all the way up to 70. I mean, they all hunt, and it's just part of their family life, So anyway, he likes to hunt, so it looks like I'm gonna have to learn something about it, whether I want to or not. So I'm probably gonna regret some of this, but I'm starting off a new adventure. I'm gonna probably get into a little bit of deer hunting in the next couple of years.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
What got him into this? Because I mean, like you said, you don't hunt all that much. So.
No, his granddad on his mama's side of the family.
Okay.
Like I said, they're all hunters, so he got him into it, and he's loved it ever since. I mean, he hit it all. He loves being in the woods. He missed a couple of does this past weekend, so he's a little bummed about that, but he's nervous when he gets that crosshair out there on that deer. He shakes a little bit course, I've heard that everybody does. So at least their first couple of times, that they kind of get over that. But I'm wishing him well. So hopefully I can get out there and enjoy it with him.
Yeah. Speaking of being nervous, the World Series, obviously the Red Sox weren't all that nervous.
No.
They end up winning it 4-2 over the Cardinals, and you and I had a conversation about how competitive we thought that series was going to be, and probably go 7. Didn't quite live up to the billing.
Not quite. I mean, it's set up to be the best series in recent memory because of the two best teams out of their respective leagues. Facing off, they had to tied for the best record in the major leagues for both of the teams, and you thought it was going to be kind of a barn burner kind of series, and it just looked like to me that I thought that St. Louis had the advantage pitching, and I thought that the Boston had the advantage hitting. Well, the better hitting team ended up winning.
Yeah.
And I think with key outings with Lackey and John Lester, I mean, they overperformed. I mean, they came out and just shut down the St. Louis lineup.
That was a difference. They beat Adam Wainwright twice in the series, who was become the elite pitcher on that staff, and one of the more elite pitchers in all of baseball. And after what he did in the division or the NLCS, how dominant he was, I didn't think that was going to happen. But they put it on him.
They rocked him pretty good.
Yeah,
I think
they did.
ended up scoring 10, 11 runs off of him.
That was the difference.
Yeah.
That was the difference.
It was.
It always helps when you have David Ortiz hitting .688 with 2 homers in the series too.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that he gave the team some sort of locker room speech, kind of midway through the series, and it must have paid off.
Yeah, I'm a baseball guy. As you already know, since we've been buddies a long time. I had the opportunity to play a little bit in college, and man, I didn't hit .688 in rec ball. That's insane. .688, 2 home runs, 7 runs scored. That's the second highest average in World Series history.
Wow, I didn't know that.
.688.
That's insane. You're right. I mean, you got a better chance of just putting the guy on first base.
He should have been high stepping.
Yeah. But I don't know that David Ortiz can high step because I think he probably has a clause in his contract. He can't do something like that because they don't want him on the IR the rest of the year.
One of the things that I found funny is after they won the World Series and they were getting ready to go into the locker room and have their celebration, the camera of course pans in the dugout, and David Ortiz has on these big, huge, like monster goggles.
He's prepared for the fallout.
Like Batman.
Well, the cap it off. I mean, what can you say about the history with the Boston franchise? I mean, this was the first one in 88 years. I think they won one at Fenway Park. So I mean, it was a good series. I mean, I think a lot of people wanted to see the Cardinals win, but
Me included.
It ended up being a good series, and they kind of made history. So.
It was competitive up until I guess the latter part of the series where Boston took Game 5 and ended in Game 6.
Yeah.
Very interesting series. You had the obstruction call, which led to a Cardinal win. So you're right that the pitching, Michael Wacha pitched a fantastic Game 2 for St. Louis.
Yes, he did.
And I really thought that in Game 6 he was going to be a little bit better than he was, but.
They rocked me.
Man, the Cardinals pitching really let them down in the end. Sure did.
Yeah, they did. I mean, there was a couple of questionable calls in that Game 6 where, I believe it was Mike Napoli that he hit, and I always thought that if a pitcher, if he threw the ball, you had to make an attempt to get out of the way. Well, Napoli just stood there and took it.
Yeah. And
they put him on first, and I think that's kind of a gray area in baseball. So, there was a couple of questionable calls, but no doubt in the end they just rocked him.
UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network. Garrett Gibbs, Jason Bishop, Adam Wainwright. True story. You and I both know Adam, and I had the opportunity to play with Adam when we were in high school, and so as I mentioned, I had the opportunity. I was good enough. Adam and I were on. Adam was on a different level than everybody else, but I was good enough to where I was getting looks at smaller colleges to go play. Obviously, Adam was getting looks at major colleges and then major league scouts and whatnot. So being a little pissant 18-year-old, Adam's throwing BP and I'm just raking. I'm home run after home run. And Adam had been dominant that whole year. My senior year, Adam's junior year, had been dominant the whole year. And so I say to him, I don't know what the big deal is about you. I'm killing you. And so he says to me, it's like, I tell you what, the big deal is that I mix pitches and then I have an unhittable curveball that you can't touch. I tell you what, I'm going to tell you that it's coming. I'm going to throw you nothing but curveballs, and I guarantee you won't hit it. It's like, bring it, let's go. Not only did I not put it in play, I didn't even foul tip it, and I knew it was coming.
And he tipped you off.
And he told me it was coming. We got to get out. When we get back, Top 25 Roundup. This is UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network.
When Heron Document Systems opened, a connected copier meant it was simply plugged into the wall. Well, things have changed. 30 years later, the copier is the focal point of document workflow. It's not just the printer, fax, and scanner. It's much more. In the medical office, it's integrating patient information with their electronic medical records. In the legal office, it's performing OCR, Bates stamping, and tracking expense for client billing. All of these changes over the past 30 years, and Heron Document Systems is still here. Still, providing your business with the best solution for your document and workflow pains. Every business experiences those pains, and that's okay. With Heron Document Systems, there is a better solution. Visit heronds.com for more information. Heron Document Systems in Brunswick, the efficient solution for your business.
Back, UnCleated, Garrett, Gibbs, Jason Bishop. So here we go, Top 25 Roundup. A huge weekend. We'll get into that in a minute. We're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. Number 10, LSU. Obviously, the biggest game on the docket is going to travel to Tuscaloosa, Garrett. They're going to take on number 1, Alabama. 8 o'clock game. Night game in Tuscaloosa. The whole pageantry of LSU, Alabama. Are you giving me an upset pick right off the bat?
No. I'm going with the Tide. I think night game in Tuscaloosa. This is a game that everybody's been waiting on out of the SEC West. Other than Texas A&M, they've already got, Alabama's already got past them. Now LSU and potentially Auburn at the end of the year is the only obstacles left to the SEC championship game. I like Alabama. I actually like Alabama by 2 scores.
See, God, there's no way, man. Alabama's not beating LSU by 2. LSU doesn't have that signature win yet this year.
They ain't going to get it this week either. I'm sorry. They're not going to get it.
So you think Alabama's going to win?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
I'm with you.
And it might get ugly.
I'm arguing with you, but I'm with you. I think Alabama wins. And, it gets old talking about Alabama wins again. But it's the same formula. Ball control, not making mistakes, running the football, keeping the other offense off the field. It gets boring talking about it, but it's boring football, but it wins.
It does.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 2, Oregon goes to number 6, Stanford. Thursday night game.
Yep, that's my upset pick. How did you get it so early in the segment? I don't get that. All right, well, that's my upset pick this week. I like Stanford to rebound from their early season loss, and they're going to take down the Duck Dynasty.
Taking down the Duck Dynasty, that's good.
They're going to put an end to the Duck Dynasty.
That's well thought out, man. By the way, we're 6-6 on our upset pick, so right about 500. We need to get over the Mendoza line. I'm with you on this game. I can't take it as an upset pick since you beat me to the punch. I should have gone first on that. But yeah, Stanford at home, physical football team. I think it's going to be the most physical team Oregon's seen. Oregon's defense hasn't been that great.
Well, and don't forget, the UCLA game, Oregon UCLA. UCLA pretty much shut them down in the first half, and I think that's a key to success. And I look for Stanford to be a lot deeper. They got a better defense than UCLA, so I think they're going to put the screws to them.
I agree. Number 3, FSU goes to Wake Forest. Any chance of a letdown?
I don't see that. With that big win they just come off of, I don't.
Good God Almighty, what they did to Miami.
Man, that was crazy.
The 2 toughest opponents, Clemson, they put the screws to them. They took them, and they woodshedded them and Miami.
Yeah, they did. You're talking about, what was it, 41-14
on national TV both times.
And that's just, and I think they gave up 200 yards of total offense on defense. Mm-hmm. Okay, their defense is is killer. I mean, they got a fantastic defense. Looks like the old Florida State
Oh,
defense.
but that flying around the field. Yeah, you missed that, man. You sure
Man,
did.
they're just swarming.
Number 12, Oklahoma goes to number 5, Baylor.
I don't see an upset in that one.
I do. Baylor.
Nope.
Baylor loses at home. Baylor hasn't played anybody.
I agree.
They have played no one. They're undefeated, but they've got wins over Kansas State and Kansas, and they haven't seen Oklahoma. They haven't seen Texas. They haven't seen Texas Tech. They haven't seen Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I mean, but I just think they got too much firepower. I think it's going to be somewhat of a shootout game, and because Oklahoma is not on the list of somebody's.
Well, you were down on them. I tell you what, I'm taking Oklahoma over Baylor. Number 7, Auburn goes to Tennessee. Be careful, Auburn. Be very careful.
Be careful, but I like Auburn by 10.
Okay. Number 9, Missouri goes to Kentucky. Gosh, I wish Kentucky was better. Missouri gets that done.
Yep.
Mississippi State goes to number 11, Texas A&M. Texas A&M wins handily.
Yes.
Virginia Tech goes to Miami. Miami falls to 14 in the AP. Keep that in mind. We're doing AP. Virginia Tech, coming off that embarrassing loss to Boston College, I think that they might have a legitimate shot at beating Miami, who lost their running back Duke for the year.
Yeah, I mean they're going to be down. They're just come off of getting woodshedded and their star players gone. I think Miami going to struggle moving the ball. So yeah, Virginia Tech. I like Virginia Tech in that one.
Uncleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network. Jason Bishop, Garrett Gibbs. Kansas goes to 15, Oklahoma State. I like Oklahoma State.
Yep.
Kansas has nothing. 16, UCLA to Arizona. I like Arizona taking down UCLA.
I'm gonna go with UCLA in that one. I think UCLA's just too tough. I think they're too deep.
Fresno State goes to Wyoming. Fresno's ranked 17th in the country now.
Yeah, they're on the list of what the 7 unbeaten.
The 7 unbeatens. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Is Fresno State deserving to play in a national championship game? All right, so I got Fresno taking that and winning that game. Houston goes to 19, UCF, Central Florida.
Ooh,
close game.
That's going to be the battle for the lead in the conference.
The American Conference. The winner of that game takes sole possession of first place in the conference.
That's going to be a good one. And
a lot of BCS implications on the line for
it
that.
Does.
It sure does.
I look at the winner of that game. That Louisville's kind of out the way a little bit. They might, whoever wins that game might get the BCS Nov.
Very much so. Speaking of Louisville, 20th in the country, they're going to go to UConn. Let's move on. We both know what's going to happen there. BYU at 21, Wisconsin. I like BYU to beat Wisconsin.
That's an interesting pick there. I just can't go against Wisconsin at Camp Randall against BYU. I like Wisconsin in that one.
24, Notre Dame goes to Pitt.
Ooh, I'm gonna take Pitt.
I'm with you. I'm going Pitt as well. Kansas State goes to Texas Tech. I like Texas Tech.
I like Texas Tech.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right, so top 25's done. We talked about Fresno State being one of those unbeaten teams. Here's the list of what we actually have: Alabama, Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State, Baylor, Northern Illinois, and Fresno State. Those are your 7 unbeaten teams to this point. Now remember, right now it's the top 2 teams. Next year it goes to the top 4 teams. With that in mind, if we'll go ahead and say we'll take the top 2 and then we'll take the top 4 just for argument's sake. So I want to hear it, Garrett. Your 2 teams right now. The season's over today, and you've got to take 2 teams to go play for the BCS National Championship. What 2 teams do you take?
I got to take, of course, Alabama. I thought they was going to be a little bit vulnerable this year. They proved me otherwise. And right now, I mean, I think up until last week, it was kind of neck and neck between Oregon getting the nod or Florida State. After what Florida State has done to Clemson and Miami, they did it in Clemson and they did it at home against Miami. I got to give Florida State the nod. I'll take Alabama, Florida State BCS Championship tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Uncleated, Bishop Media Sports Network, Garrett Gibbs, Jason Bishop. With the reasoning that if the season ended this past week, if the season's over, Oregon doesn't get to play Stanford and finish out their schedule, which is pretty tough from here on out. It's not easy. Okay. With that, I'm going with you. I want to see Alabama, Florida State. If the season ended today, that's who I want to see. Alabama, Florida State. Oregon, Baylor, Northern Illinois, and Fresno State all on the outside looking in. However, It's not the way it's going to go. Oregon still is going to finish with a tougher schedule. If they win out, their BCS ranking is going to be higher than Florida State, and it's going to be Alabama, Oregon. If those two teams win out, Florida State's going to be on the outside looking in because they're going to finish undefeated.
Yeah, they are. They are. You know, it looks like they're probably going to play. You know, setting up right now for a rematch in the conference title game against Miami, which I think they'll handle them again.
All right, so give me 4 teams.
Well, you got to go with Alabama. This is in the order I have them. I got Alabama, I got Florida State, I got Oregon, and then I'm going to take, let's see, my 4th pick, I'm probably going to have to go with the Buckeyes, as much as I hate to say it.
Okay. All right. My 4 teams, Alabama, number 1, 2 is Oregon, 3 is Florida State. There's not much difference to me in what Baylor's done and what Ohio State has done. Ohio State plays in a weak conference. They haven't played anybody. If Baylor gets through their conference undefeated, having gone through Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, I give Fresno State. Yeah, let's put them in.
Yeah,
I give Baylor the nod over Ohio State, but I don't think I really don't see Baylor coming through that undefeated. I think Ohio State will finish. I really do. I think you're going to have 4 undefeated teams and only 2 get in this season.
Well, that's just going to be...
That's from the major conferences, not mentioning about what Northern Illinois or Fresno is going to do.
Right. You know, and I thought it was going to be Louisville was going to be one of them, but, you know, they slipped up early, so that conversation's over with, at least for another year. But that's just going to be more ammunition for you know, why they're doing the playoff next year. You know, I just... It's a shame. It really is. To have, you know, 4 undefeateds, which you normally don't have 4, but normally you got 3. Normally you could have 3. Mm-hmm. Normally that's been what it's been playing out in recent years. And to have one of those teams on the outside looking in, it's just a shame.
Yeah,
it really is.
We're getting fussed at, but I have one more thought before we get out. I want to see a 32-team playoff. That's what I want to see.
32 teams.
32
so
teams.
Expand it from 25 to 32.
Well, you don't even have to rank them. I don't really care. But, yeah, if you want to, it doesn't really matter to me. I want to see 1 play 32 and then 2 play 31 and on through the list. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to see. And, therefore, I'd rather have the argument about who got in, who should have gotten in over the 33 over the 32. Should the 32nd team have gotten in over the 33rd team versus 2 over 3 or 4 versus 5? Because in reality... I do. I think that Florida State can beat Alabama. I think Oregon can beat Alabama. I think Baylor. Well, we're going to end it right there. When we get back, we're going to talk. Hey, there's a big game, Georgia, Florida. We'll talk about that when we get back. This is UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network.
When Heron Document Systems opened, a connected copier meant it was simply plugged into the wall. Well, things have changed. 30 years later, the copier is the focal point of document workflow. It's not just the printer, fax, and scanner. It's much more. In the medical office, it's integrating patient information with their electronic medical records. In the legal office, it's performing OCR, Bates stamping, and tracking expense for client billing. All of these changes over the past 30 years, and Heron Document Systems is still here. Still, providing your business with the best solution for your document and workflow pains. Every business experiences those pains, and that's okay. With Heron Document Systems, there is a better solution. Visit HeronDS.com for more information. Heron Document Systems in Brunswick, the efficient solution for your business.
And back here on UnCleated, Garrett Gibbs, Jason Bishop on the Bishop Media Sports Network. Georgia, Florida. Big game yesterday. The loser was done. Winner still has a slim chance of finding themselves in the SEC championship game. Garrett, I want to hear what your thoughts were on this game. It's a very ugly game.
Well, just for the Georgia faithful out there, I mean, thank the Lord for the return of Todd Gurley. Without him, he was definitely your biggest, offensive producer against Florida. Without him, I think, it turns out to be a little different game. And I think also it Florida hits those 2 field goals that they missed, it's still a different outcome. So it was somewhat of a disappointing game to go up, 23-3 at the half, and you come back and they shut you out in the second half, and you still almost lose. I mean, I think that's a problematic. It's a growing trend. I think it's always been there, but as of late, it's a growing trend with the Bulldogs when they play somebody, they get up on sometimes a 20, 30-point lead, and the other team gets momentum, and they can't come back, and they almost lose the game.
We're seeing that with Alabama, with the Tennessee game. Vanderbilt's another example, and then we could go all day.
Yeah.
The Florida example as well. 23-3 at the half, and 23-20 final score, and probably should have lost that football game. I think Georgia deserved to lose it.
Well, the way they played in the second half, definitely.
That's a game where if you're up 23-3 at the half, and you had opportunities to even stretch the score out even further that you didn't take advantage of, but that's really a game that Georgia needs to really win at that point, 45-10, 45-17.
They do.
And I feel like that the foot was taken off the accelerator in the second half, and allowed Florida to make some plays. And of course, there was a turnover right there with the lateral that turned into a touchdown, which gave Florida a lot of momentum. Just a boneheaded play by Lynch. Boneheaded play, and you're taught from a very young age, don't stop until you hear that whistle.
Right. And I don't know what happened with that one.
He just made a boneheaded play.
He's probably gonna have to sleep with a whistle this week.
No kidding. UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network. Your biggest play of the game, the biggest play that led to Florida losing, Georgia winning.
Well, my biggest play actually goes toward the losing team. I think the biggest play of the game, was the lateral.
Okay.
That Florida, picked up, and then 2 plays later they were in the end zone. That made it a 23-10 game. That's when the whole game changed right there.
Okay.
And from then on, I think Georgia was on their heels, which this is what I'm talking about. I mean, here they are up by 20 points, and they're on their heels. Okay, they come out, and Florida gets that touchdown off the fumble, and all of a sudden it's a whole different ball game, and Georgia was so conservative with they didn't hardly throw the ball, in the second half, trying to preserve that lead, and then they almost came out, they almost lost. So
Florida's offense, Murphy 174 yards through the air, and then rushing the football, their leading carrier, 20 carries for 76 yards, Kelvin Taylor. Biggest play for me, Aaron Murray holding on to the football and the safety, and when the sack with the safety, not fumbling the ball and allowing Florida to get a touchdown, giving up 2 points instead of 7, came out to be huge later on in the game.
Yes, it did.
Okay, so that completely, I think that we're in agreement that takes Florida out of the running for the SEC East.
Yeah, I think they're done.
Okay, keeps Georgia in it. So
very slimly.
You say that. There are some scenarios where it's not completely unfathomable. South Carolina holds a tiebreaker over Missouri if Missouri were to drop another game. Well, who does Missouri have left? That's the obvious question.
Yeah.
Okay, so Missouri still has to go to Kentucky.
Yeah.
They should get that.
They should get that done.
Then they have to go to Ole Miss.
That's gonna be the game that they slip up on, if at all.
And then they host Texas A&M at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think they got a good chance of actually losing both of those.
They've got 3 conference games remaining. South Carolina, on the other hand, only has 1 conference game remaining, and that's against the Gators. Yeah. And then they're done with their conference schedule, and then they head into Coastal Carolina and they play Clemson to round out the year. So that's what their schedule is. I think that, I'm pretty certain they'll get by the Gators, and I think they'll end up with 2 conference losses.
Yeah, and then if Georgia wins out, then they'll have the tiebreaker over Carolina.
And of course, Georgia has Kentucky remaining on their conference schedule and Auburn on their conference schedule. Georgia must win out.
Yeah, and all this is hinging on Georgia just running the table.
Right. Well, in their conference schedule. So if
Right.
Georgia finds a way to beat Auburn rather, and then holds on against Kentucky, doesn't get upset there, and South Carolina takes care of business against Florida, really, you think about it, the team with the most difficult part of their schedule left, Missouri.
Yeah, it is. I think Georgia, got through the gauntlet of the first, September schedule of their schedule this year. And they kind of came through that somewhat unscathed. I mean, they did lose the game to Clemson, but at least it wasn't a conference loss.
Creates all sorts of tiebreaker situations. Missouri
Right.
holding the tiebreaker over Georgia, Georgia holding the tiebreaker over South Carolina, South Carolina taking down Missouri. So essentially what would happen in that situation is typically the SEC would send the highest ranked team.
Highest ranked.
In that case, odds are that would probably be South Carolina.
Yep.
Unless Clemson beats South Carolina,
At the end of the
knocking
year,
them
right.
down, and then Missouri obviously will fall losing another game to Texas A&M or Ole Miss, probably further if they lose to Ole Miss. And Georgia's right on the doorstep of getting back into the top 25 if they win out and beat Auburn. Good, great, googly moogly, would you believe it? Georgia actually has a chance.
As far-fetched as it sounds, they do.
Well, I mean, it took me 10 minutes to explain
I
it.
know, man. I mean, how about they talk about the BCS killer? What about the SEC killer, man? I mean, man, if that plays out like you're talking about, I mean, you're talking about some confusion. I mean,
Look, it sounds crazy. I understand that, but the thing is it's completely fathomable to happen.
Yeah, it could
really,
happen.
It really is. I really think Georgia's got a good chance of beating Auburn, and I really think that Missouri's got a really good chance of losing not only to Ole Miss, but at least to Ole Miss, and if not both, them and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So, they're about to get James Franklin back, and Matty Mox played really well for them.
Yeah,
So the quarterback transition, how's that going to affect them?
well, it remains to be seen. I think, like you said, I think their backup. He's come in there and played really well as anybody could expect. I mean, they did slip up against South Carolina, but they all in all they played really well. I mean, I think they just woodshedded Tennessee Saturday. So, I mean, with their backup. So I don't know. They say they are a much better team with Franklin, but that's hard for me to see.
As well as Mock has thrown the football, it's tough. I agree with you. And so then you get into the possibility of South Carolina or Georgia finding their way back in the SEC championship game to play. Obviously, I think we're both in agreement. Alabama's likely going to be there, whether they have one loss or not.
Yeah.
And I want to pose a question to you really quick, a little bit off topic, but we were talking about national championship scenarios earlier. If LSU, I feel like the only team that's got a chance right now, other than the SEC championship game, is LSU right now. So if LSU gets Alabama, or whoever's in the SEC championship game gets Alabama, and they have one loss, do you put a one-loss Alabama team in the national championship over a undefeated Oregon, an undefeated Ohio State, or an undefeated Baylor?
Oh, that's the $10 million question right there. I you know what? I have to, because the SEC one loss.
What about an undefeated Florida State team?
Well, I think if Alabama, as it plays out, if Florida State wins out, okay, they're undefeated. If Alabama has a loss, Florida State's gonna be in the championship game against somebody. Whether it be Oregon, Alabama, Ohio State, or far-fetched Baylor, I would take them over any of those teams, simply because they're you have to put in the strength of schedule. They went through Texas A&M, if they beat LSU, and then whoever they might slip up to, I think the biggest game they got left is Auburn. But if they do slip up, I still think they're better.
I'm a firm believer in the eyeball test. In my opinion, the two best teams in the country, eyeball test, Alabama and Florida State. That's what I see.
Yep.
But then I also believe in earning your way into a national championship game, and Florida State's schedule over when you compare it to an Oregon schedule. Oregon's schedule is tougher. So I feel like that Oregon should get in over a Florida State. So if Alabama slips up and you've got Oregon undefeated, and you've got an undefeated Florida State team, even with the Florida State team, with Alabama's resume and what Florida State's done, I've got to put Alabama in over an undefeated Florida State. I've got to put Alabama in over an undefeated Ohio State for sure. Definitely a Baylor. I think you can make an argument for Baylor if they get through their schedule undefeated. I think you can make an argument, but I still don't think that they're playing top 10 opponents consistently in the Big 10 or Big 12.
And I think the same argument for Oregon. Over Florida State. I personally think Florida State. The competition that they've played and just woodshedded. Now, they didn't just play them and beat them 20-10.
Do you really think that Miami was a top 10 team? I mean, be honest about that.
Yeah, I'd say top 15.
Okay.
Top 15.
All right. Now,
they
go to Clemson.
But they go to Clemson and beat them by 40.
I give you Clemson. Did you really think Maryland is a top 25 team?
No, I didn't see Maryland.
Okay. Okay. So, is it fair to say that maybe a couple of Florida State's wins were over teams that were overrated?
Well, yeah, it could be, but just look at what they do. I mean, they're beating teams, 41-14, 51-7. Oregon doesn't play defense like Florida State.
I agree.
And I think Florida State's offense is just as lethal. So I mean, like you said, eyeball test. I take Florida State over Oregon any day.
Yeah, same here. All right, well, we got to get out. We can do this all day. UnCleated, the Bishop Media Sports Network.
When Heron Document Systems opened, a connected copier meant it was simply plugged into the wall. Well, things have changed. 30 years later, the copier is the focal point of document workflow. It's not just the printer, fax, and scanner. It's much more. In the medical office, it's integrating patient information with their electronic medical records. In the legal office, it's performing OCR, Bates stamping, and tracking expense for client billing. All of these changes over the past 30 years, and Heron Document Systems is still here. Still, providing your business with the best solution for your document and workflow pains. Every business experiences those pains, and that's okay. With Heron Document Systems, there is a better solution. Visit heronds.com for more information. Heron Document Systems in Brunswick, the efficient solution for your business.
And we are back here on UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network. Garrett Gibbs, along with yours truly, Jason Bishop. So I kind of wanted to get into some sporting events that we went into, and I was told that it wasn't a good segment by the producers. And guess what? Who's in control of the show? This guy.
Might not be next week. But.
So it's no secret I am a Georgia fan, and a few years ago I had the opportunity to. Oh boy, I've never admitted this in public. There's only a certain group of people that know this, but I actually went to a Florida game in Gainesville. I went down to the swamp. I sure did.
I would catch fire.
A buddy of mine, he and I went down there, and so we were watching Florida Appalachian State.
Okay.
Florida won going away. It was actually a pretty close game through the first half. They didn't play very well in the first half, pulled away in the second. So we're sitting there watching the game, and between the third and fourth quarter, all of a sudden, a Kumbaya fest breaks out. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, there's a tradition with Florida fans that I didn't know about until I was there. Now I know, and I still have nightmares about it, to be honest with you. Between the third and fourth quarter, the Florida fans will literally stand up, put their arms around each other, and start swaying back and forth and sing the song "The Boys of Florida," which is a very non-football-ish song, if you know what I mean. So my buddy and I are sitting in the stadium, and all of a sudden, all at once, all these fans just stand up and start putting their arms around each other, and we're still sitting down, like we're all like huddled together, like scared out of our mind. We don't know what's going on.
Well, you're in enemy territory too, so.
And we did. We wore red and black. We weren't afraid. So they start swaying, they start singing, and we just stop and look at each other like, what is going on? What is this? And we didn't even make eye contact. We kept our head down because we were afraid to look them in the eye because of what might happen to us.
That is hilarious, man. That is hilarious. Well, I've been to a couple of college football games. I've been to a bunch of Georgia Southern games. I've been to, and they were great. And I've been to a handful of Georgia games, and I got two different ones here. I'm gonna cheat you on this one here.
Typical.
Yeah, that's right. And now who's got control of the show? But probably the best one I've been to was Georgia played LSU one year, and it was just coming off of Georgia, got woodshedded in the SEC championship the year prior, and they had a chance to redeem themselves the next season when they hosted LSU at home, and they woodshedded LSU at home.
Oh, that's the year that they played LSU in the SEC championship game, and LSU blew them out.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think it was like 34-13 or something like that. Well, anyway, the next time they got to play was in Athens, and they blew them out 45-16. So they were up 24-0 at one time, and it was just the environment there is just it's unrivaled. It really is. I don't see how it can get any better. And another thing that they do tradition-wise is if you've never been to a homecoming game up there, and I'm not really sure if they do this every year, but they have the Red Coat Marching Band, and I'm not big into the bands and stuff. I like the music, and I like the environment that they create, the atmosphere. But that particular year, they had the current Red Coat Marching Band out there playing, and then they got all of the members that's still alive that played like back in the 50s, 60s. I'm talking about old people out there. They would play, the current band would play their version of Glory, Glory, and then the old people would play their version coming in behind them, and it was awesome. It was awesome to watch during the halftime.
Okay.
And I
that's your second one?
That was my second one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so two different Georgia games. So sorry, I'm a little biased.
Okay, well, not to get cheated, so I'm going to give a second one.
No, you can't do that, man. We got to end it now.
You know what? Watch me. I was in Atlanta at Turner Field, and the Braves were playing the Red Sox. And there's a certain outfielder that had been with the Red Sox for a while. There's a play at the plate. I'm down the right field line, about second row back, up the foul line.
So you had some good seats.
I did, yeah.
You had some good seats.
I'm not gonna lie, they were nice. They were decent. And so there's a play at the plate, and the outfielder throws home, the runner at second throws home, overthrows the catcher by 20 feet. Ball goes to screen. runner behind that runner scores. So he gave up 2 runs on a bad throw over the plate. So as the outfielder was walking back to his position, I say to him, I was like, "Baby, that up, baby, way to show off your arm." And he looks at me, I'm close enough where he can literally hear me and see me while I'm saying it. And so he looks at me, and he slides his hand across his chest, his throwing hand across his chest, and flips me off where nobody can see it. Are you kidding me?
Hey, that's a professional job.
Professional athlete. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You know what? Make good throws.
He's even got the hand gestures down.
Make good throws. If you don't want to get heckled, throw the ball to the plate, not 20 feet over the catcher.
Must have been a heckler behind the plate.
Obviously. Okay. All right, well, that is going to wrap things up for us. This has been UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network.